So let's just take a moment. Just sense this present moment. And be aware of your looking, be aware of your hearing. Be aware of your sensation. Be aware of your hearing. And your senses, tell you that you are alive and that you are here. Perhaps take a slightly deeper breath and, release. In that sense that you are in the right place at the right time. And I don't mean just because we're here on this talk. I wouldn't be that egotistical. But you're in the right place. You are where you're meant to be. And with that sense of just being present, let's just, I'll just start to explore. And just, as I was listening to myself, I was reminded of a film called Passion Fish, which is relatively old now. And there's a scene in there where the two ladies in a boat with a rather dubious Louisiana fisherman, and they're in the swamps, in the Louisiana swamps, and they weren't sure about getting in the boat with this guy because they're he's a bit dangerous, not in a bad way, just a bit of a bad boy, charismatic bad boy. And anyway, the engine breaks down, and they're drifting in the swamp, and it's getting dark, and they're getting worried and afraid, and there's just a point when they say from their fear, are we lost? And he sort of says in his Louisiana drawl, we can't be lost because wherever we are is where we're at. So how could you be lost? And I really like that. There's two people in the boat. They're all in the same situation, and one of them thinks they're lost and the other one knows they're not, even if they are, as it were. And that seems to me the kind of essence of, so the question is, who's going to find the way? Who's going to best find the way? Is it the one that's kind of panicking? Where am I? I don't recognize anything. Oh my God, I'm lost. I'm going to die. Or the one goes, no, I'm here. This is where I am. How can I be lost? I'm here. I'm not lost. I don't know where I am, but I'm not lost. And, in that sort of place of centeredness and just sort of looking out, that's the one that's going to find the way. And another kind of story comes to mind. I read an article of a woman who went on a kind of adventure holiday in the Sahara, and they were in the middle of the desert at night, very, very beautiful. And she wanted to go off and see the stars, because they are absolutely awesome in that kind of place, because there's no kind of light other than the sky, and so that the stars are just unbelievable. You could just touch them. And so she walked away from the camp, being a kind of city person, not realizing how easy it is to lose your direction in that environment. And so she walked. She was just walking out, not from her point of view, not very far. Saw the kind of wonder of the stars, and then when she decided she wanted to go back to the camp, where's the camp? Can't see anything. It's totally black. All the sand dunes look the same. And, she started to really panic. And so she tried to find her way. And as she was trying to find her way, she just seemed to be getting further and further lost. When she came across this Tuareg, and she was like really frightened because this guy's all kind of veiled up, and he's got swords and spears and things that Tuaregs have. And but she obviously couldn't speak Tamashak, and he couldn't speak English, but he understood. She was trying to say, like, can you take me to the camp? Where's the camp? And he kind of understood what the problem was. So he started to lead her off, and she didn't know where he was taking her. It could be anywhere. And but he did. He took her back to her camp, and I can't remember now in the story whether she asked him through an interpreter or whether she asked their Tuareg guides. How do you know? How do you know where the camp is? When everything looks the same, how do you know? And they said it's very simple. You just have to know where you've come from. So she lost where she'd come from, in the wonder of the stars. She had lost where she'd come from. And so there was no orientation. Whereas they know that, if you set off from camp and you keep that line in your awareness where you've come from, you can always turn around and back to it. But as you set off, if you lose that, and then you turn around where? Where is it? And that too is something very that really struck me at the time as a really fundamental truth. These two stories, hold a fundamental truth. And so, the practice, as we said before, the practice is only a practice. It's not the real thing. My Tai Chi teacher, Dr. Chi Chang Dao, said, there's no, Tai Chi practice is great, but what are you doing for the other 23.5 hours of the day? That's the really important bit. And if it's not linking, in other words, if it's no matter how wonderful it is, if it's just sort of in an isolated place, and you leave that, and then it doesn't touch you, you don't take it with you, then as my Tibetan teacher Geshe Damja said, actually, much better go make a cup of tea. So, I mention these things just because, I have lots of, I could tell lots of stories, but we in the West don't actually understand, what a practice is for a beginner, actually. So the meditation practice is for a beginner. We think it's the whole thing, but it's not. Why? Because it's simply a practice. It's important, but it's not the be-all and end-all. So, for example, would be, if somebody says, you need to follow your breath to stay in the present. So great. It's sort of the essence of one kind of vipassana. Is follow your breath. So you listen to your breath and you become into the present. And there you are in the present, and then you lose the present by trying to follow your breath. It's like, it's kind of obvious when you see it. The breath takes you to the moment. And because we're caught in the practice of the breath, we keep returning to the breath, and we keep trying to follow the breath, and we keep losing it. But we're already there. So this is really important. And, when I went to Lamrim Buddhist Center, I went to live at Lamrim Buddhist Center, for me, that was like a huge thing. And, I was dedicating myself to the spiritual life. And I was thinking, well, I'm going to be sitting there for hours and hours and hours a day. And the Geshe just said, no, 5 minutes, it's good. And I was so disappointed. It's like, he said, spend the rest of the time cleaning. my spiritual ego was really disappointed. But he was right. So the first thing really is the amount of time. And so, more is not necessarily better. I think that's the key thing to keep in mind. More is not necessarily better, because more might mean what you're actually practicing is distraction. So, in the initial phase, when you come to sit, there's enthusiasm, and there's all that, and there's inspiration, and there you are. You're really right in the moment. So those first few moments are it, and then a thought comes, and then another thought comes, and on one level of the practice, those first 5 minutes are building the right. They're building that is building kung fu. That is building the kung fu of presence. That's building the knowing of presence. And thereafter, you could say, I could say this in different ways, but thereafter, what am I practicing? I'm practicing distraction. So from that point of view, more is not necessarily better. And from the point of view of those two stories, the 5 minutes is where it is. It's just putting an anchor down. This is where I am. This is how I am. And that's letting you know where you are. Letting you know who you are today. Letting you know the kind of atmosphere, that's around me today. Today I'm tired. Today I'm busy. Today I'm happy. Today I'm sad. Today I'm, whatever it happens to be. I take that moment to meet myself. So I was going to read something from the Emmanuel's book, but I'll save it for later. So the first thing I want to say is time. It doesn't have to be a long time, and 5 minutes is a good time. 20 minutes is a good time too. Sometimes if you've got a little bit longer, that muscle of forgetting and then remembering, that muscle of remembering. So if you take a little longer, there will be forgetting, and that's part of the process. Because what I'm then going to practice is remembering to know where I come from, remembering to return. Oh yeah, that's where the camp is. This is where I am. This is how I am. So I'm building the muscle of remembering, the muscle of return. And from that point of view of self-love, I'm returning to accompany myself. Why? Because I care. So this is quite different from returning because someone told me to. So, the first 5 minutes, you just sit down, or stand, take one movement, whatever it is, and in that moving, or in that breathing, or in that sitting, you are finding yourself. And then if you take a little longer, there will be a place of forgetting. Good. Emmanuel would say, if you are seeing that you're forgetting, you're already back. I'll say that again. If you are aware that you are distracted, hear it. If you are aware that you're distracted, are you distracted? No. If you were distracted, you'd be distracted. So what happens is we see we're distracted, we're not distracted, and then we distract ourselves by telling ourselves we're distracted. It's nuts. It's truly nuts. Excuse me a minute. My phone has decided that I'm asking it a question. So that's a good one. So there I am, distracted. And then you get into beating yourself up. Oh my God, Richard said. So as soon as you are kind of aware of it, you're back. Done. And so you are practicing the muscle. Sometimes it is a muscle of returning, and sometimes it's the muscle of acknowledging I'm back and just leaving it there. And so that's a skill. And it takes a little bit. Sometimes it takes more than 5 minutes. So, when I sit, I don't have a set period of time anymore. I sit for as long as it is fruitful, or as long as I have time for. And I'm a morning person. I've learned, and I'm not saying everybody is, but I am. And if I don't do it first thing, I don't do it. And it's been that way for as long as I can remember. So the other thing to consider is, what kind of person are you? Are you a night owl? In which case, if the text says you've got to do it first thing in the morning, it's not going to work for you. It's going to work for you at night, when everybody else has gone to bed, when the world is starting to sleep. And there's a lovely, it doesn't work for me, but but there is a lovely kind of quietness about that time when the daytime people, go away. That daytime mind goes away, and the stars come out, as it were. It's a very beautiful time. So, are you a nighttime person? Are you a morning person? So if you want to put a practice in, you want to consider, when can you give yourself 5 minutes on a regular basis? Because the other thing is, the other thing that I've said in the past is, make one decision. I'm going to practice. And then do it. Don't make the decision, today I'm going to practice and I intend to practice tomorrow. No. Then you have to make another decision. Then you have to make another decision. And you know where that's going to go. So it's like making one decision. Yes, I'm going to commit myself to this, and I'm going to make it doable. One of the things about Geshe Damcho's 5 minutes is it's doable. So I can remember a very busy staff nurse at a hospital. She heard me giving a talk, and she said, well, I just don't have time for this. So I said, well, when do you have time? When do you have like 30 seconds? When do you have 5 seconds? When do you have a moment? And she said, well, in your day, when do you have a moment? She said, I don't. I said, you must have 5 seconds somewhere. She said, well, actually, yeah, I do. I have 5 seconds when the consultant is assessing the patient, when the consultant is talking to the patient, when the consultant is taking the pulse or whatever the consultant does. I stand back. She said, I have about 20 seconds. I said, great. So that's where you're going to practice. There, those 20 seconds. And she heard what I said, and she did it, and that became her practice. So she's present, because of course if the consultant asks something, she's got to respond. But what she's doing is remembering who she is. What she's doing is remembering where she is. What she's doing is becoming present. She's putting her tail down, as it were. And she said it completely transformed her day. Now, if you ask somebody like that, who's also got a family, and whether it's getting people out the door or, when you come back from a busy day, ask someone like that to meditate, and they're too tired at the end of the day. They're just gone. You ask someone like that to meditate, they're not going to. So it's about seeing where it's possible in your life and making it doable. And then the other thing that I think is important is that you build a kind of relationship with the place. It's, someone who's a little bit sensitive came into our house, and they said, so there's something here. What goes on here? And we said, well, that's where we sit. That's where we sit to meditate. And so there's and it's slightly Pavlovian. When I go to sit there, I know I'm sitting on my mat, as it were. I know I'm going to commit myself to this. So there's a kind, visually, and as you know, I travel a lot, and for my work, I do meditate as part of my preparation, but it's never the same is when I'm at home. And it's never the same when I'm on that spot. That is my spot. So, you might want to look in your house. And I'm thinking of somebody, I can't remember who it was now, but like their spot, at least I can see them now. Their spot was on the landing. That was their spot. Coming down from upstairs, or going up upstairs from downstairs, there was just a small landing, and they ended up just putting a chair there. It was just big enough to put a chair there, so it didn't interfere with people coming up and down. And somehow they felt in that slightly elevated place, or between up and down, that was their spot. It was kind of in the corner. It was kind of away from everything. And, the busyness of the house was going on below. And that was their spot. And, I thought that was great. So, you might want to look in your house, where is, you just walk, if you haven't already done this, just walk around and see where your spot is. Like in our garden here, for example, it's a lovely garden, but there's a spot just over there. It's not a very beautiful spot, but it's my spot. When I stand there, I feel connected to the whole property. And I feel connected to the life here. And it was the same when those of you who knew Poulston Court, Marigold will tell you, there's we used to do the same thing there. When we first went there, I could find my spot. Where was the spot where I could stand and connect to the whole place? Somehow that was our spot. That was Poulston Court's and mine spot. That was my line in. And if I wanted to communicate to the house, or if I wanted to center the house, or if I wanted to center myself there, or, I would just stand in that spot. So, you might want to consider that, where is it? Where is your spot in your house? And even if you have one room, where is your spot in that one room? Because if you have a spot where you watch TV, for example, if you try and meditate there, the vibe is watching TV. The vibe isn't to do with meditation. So, or a library, or if you have a workplace, you may feel very good there. You may be very creative. Your mind might be working really well, but that's not what you want when you meditate. So, there may be somewhere else. So consider, where it is. Consider timing. Consider where you're going to do it, and experiment, and then make it special. So you can make it special. You can make it a special by what? By just having a candle, for example. I mean, ritual it can be empty if it's done without intent. But if it's done with intent, the ritual's function is to remind us of something. The ritual symbolizes something about what the ritual is concerned. And so, if we're looking at meditation, then a candle is lovely. But it could equally be a picture. I remember Marigold had on her desk a picture of a very regal elder woman from some tribe, I think, up in the Himalayas. And this woman had such dignity, and such presence, that all you had to do was just kind of look at that photo, and you could get it. So it doesn't have to be a candle. I used to have pictures of my teachers to kind of inspire me or to remind me. So whatever it is, I'm not suggesting you have a picture of me or Marigold or Andrea or whoever it happens to be. But I do think it's important that there's something there that symbolizes, your consecration to remembering, and something that's that when you light the candle, or when your eyes go to that picture, or that symbol, it connects you to where you want to be, to where you're reminding yourself of, and to make it beautiful. That's the other thing, to make it beautiful, to make it somewhere that you want to go. It's your spot. The practice of meditation, the practice of TMW, it's self-love in its highest form. It's really remembering, who we truly are. So, if it's untidy, or if it belongs to somebody else, or whatever it happens to be, then it's not ours, and I can make it mine by sort of force of presence, but that's different from a place that is holding me. And it may be a challenge. It can be a challenge to sit in front of the mirror. So it needs to be a place where you feel held, ideally. Somewhere that's beautiful, somewhere that's honoring you, and somewhere that is yours, and somewhere where there is something. In the past, I know I've used just a pair of Tibetan belts, those little symbol things with a kind of thong between them. I just put that down somewhere, and that's it. It can be a lovely thing to do. One group of students brought me a lovely bell, just over there. And from time to time, what I've done is I just take that bell and I just ring it. It's got a lovely tone to it. And when I ring that bell, the bell sounds, and then as the bell fades, into silence, I'm in. I'm back. I'm hearing the bird. I'm feeling my breath. I'm alive. I'm here. This is a good meditation. It's enough. Just that moment transforms the day. Because who is now speaking is different from who was speaking before. Who gets up off this chair having touched base is different from who sits down on the chair. And that's the point. The point is to remember. The point is to remember who we are. And we're not there, and we're not there. We were there, and we're going to be there, but right now, we're here. And being here is this person. So I think maybe it's time to, just for that quote from Emmanuel, I've told you about the book, which is one of angel teacher that Marigold and I worked with for a long time, and still are inspired by. It's called A Manual for Living Comfortably in the Cosmos, and inside it is Pat Rodegast, who was the channel, she said to me, Richard, would you like Emmanuel to sign the book? I go, oh yeah, never occurred to me, So I said, yeah, of course. So I gave her the book, and she sort of connected into Emmanuel and scribbled something in it, and then so handed it back to her. There you go. And so I kind of opened it up, what's he going to say? So to Richard, no forethought required. You are to live with devotion, Pat and Emmanuel. And that's just been been such a thing for me. No, I mean, for a Gemini, Gemini is going to be in the mind. No forethought is required. What? No forethought? What? What do you mean? You are to live! Exclamation mark. It's like, yeah, okay. Really? Yes, really. And so that you could interpret that in all kinds of ways. But just that moment of listening to the bell, and as that silent goes and really coming back, there is no forethought in that place. And I am alive. I am living that moment. I'm not in front of it. I'm not behind it. I'm living that moment. No forethought. Anyway. So just a little bit about meditation from Emmanuel. Meditation is a path that will help you release the treasures of self-love that rest deep within you. This may also, from time to time, offer difficulties in that you will be forced to see your imperfections. These are transitory states. They are areas where the life force has been petrified. When this force is freed, it will flow sweetly again, blissfully. Listen to your inner being. It is wiser than your conscious mind. As meditation, almost anything will do. Music, a quiet walk, an excellent meal, firelight, candlelight, holding the hands of a loved one. Whatever causes you to center into the joy of your beingness and to disregard the clamoring of your intellect. Some of you tend to become too rigid in form. There are as many ways to meditate as there are people to walk the earth. Everyone needs to go into their own inner silence, their own inner truth, in whatever way they can. This inner illumination is your birthright. It is the key to the essence of your being, to your soul's wisdom. In your meditative practice, see that time of quiet as an open door, and through that door you walk into a broader light, into a wider sense of self and reality. Definitions are only for clarification, not imprisonment. Remember that. When one comes to the threshold of expansion in meditation, there comes a time when the intellectual mind is not capable of following. To feel that you have somehow to keep control through the intellect puts a limit on where this expansion is trying to go. As you ultimately move beyond your intellectual mind, you will touch your soul mind. The soul mind is able to give form and substance, meaning and relationship to the expanded consciousness in meditation. I mean, it's amazingly good advice, and it's said so succinctly. I couldn't have said it better myself. That understanding, because we are so obsessed with our intellectual mind that somehow, there's that understanding that there is a point when we just have to let that go. It's useful, but only so far. It's a very, very important thing to understand. And it's terrifying for the intellectual mind. It will fight you. It will try and get your attention back. And that too is, part of the path of shifting, if you like, the mind, the thinking process from being the master, to being the servant. And meditation is particularly good for that. But it's about building the kung fu. And so when Emmanuel talks about almost anything will do that brings you, into that place where your truth is, the truth of who you are is, which has this kind of joyful, peaceful, joyful place. Anything can do that. It's not sitting on the mat that'll do that. And the reason why anything can do that is because what you're aware of is that it's guiding you back to this true self. The kung fu, it's reminding you of the kung fu of your true self. And so once you understand what that feeling is, then the task is to bring that true self, to bring that hearted self, to bring that joyful self, back into the world, as it were. And that is the application of TMW, the application of meditation, is taking what you find in the practice and then bringing it back out into the world. And so then, once that happens, anything is meditation again. I'm pretty much meditating, even when I'm furious. I'm practicing meditation. Why? Because there's one element of me now that is aware that I'm furious. There's one part of me that's meditating as I'm furious. I mean, there are times when I'm just furious, don't get me wrong. But there's also that element where, as a result of that muscle, that I do leave less and less and less, even in those really difficult places. And that's because of the practice of the muscle. So just to review, find a time that works for you. And understand that there are two kinds of timings. And you don't just have to have one timing, but there are two kinds of timings. There's the timings which affirm the truth of you, and timings which tend to be a little longer that are affirming the muscle of return. Find a place, if possible, that is yours. Build the habit there, wherever that is. And if there's some kind of symbol that can by placing it there, you are affirming, in this place, this is what I'm doing. That can be very useful. And make one decision. So if this is important, I like to say sometimes, make the main thing the main thing. If you don't make the main thing the main thing, it's gone. So for me, some form of remembering first thing in the morning is the main thing. Not everything else is subsidiary to that. So that's where I start my day. Pretty much every day. Wherever I am, whatever's going on, I take some time first thing in the morning. And that works for me. For you, it might be last thing at night. It might be during the afternoon. Who knows? Find your time. And so because I make that one decision, I just commit to it. And then, I don't say I don't doubt and I don't wobble, but I've made the decision to do this. I don't know if you can feel the difference between that kind of decision and a decision which is, well, it's a sort of temporary one. I'm going to try it on today and maybe tomorrow, maybe not. I know where that's going to go for me. It's not going anywhere. So I've just learned to make that one decision.